The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question to the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is back in session. It is April 27th, 2025, and the war in Ukraine continues. So, with that being said, let's get it started. Now, as all of you know, on Monday, like earlier this week, Pope Francis passed away, literally a day after giving his blessings to everybody around the world on Easter. He literally was alive one day and the next day, gone. Literally died. Kind of strange if you ask me, but he's dead now. Passed away, from what I understood, from a stroke and heart failure. I mean, Francis's health was a topic of question for the past few months, but now that he's dead, everything is now basically history. He's gone now, and may he rest in eternal peace. But meanwhile, Vladimir Zelensky, depending on what you want to refer to him as, in either Russian or Ukrainian, attended the funeral of Pope Francis, along with U.S. President Donald Trump, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and French President Emmanuel Macron. In a way, the funeral of Pope Francis became sort of like another chance for Zelensky to get more aid from the United States. And so far, the results have been relatively mixed, because apparently Donald Trump, he basically tweeted from Rome, and he said that he's no longer sure if Putin wants peace, and that he's going to consider additional sanctions on Russia. Now, the weirdest thing was that earlier this week, Russia has also talked about negotiating without any preconditions, which is total cuckery. You don't do that. You don't give your enemy a reason to think that they're somehow winning, and that, they're literally, depleted to hell. And I'm talking about Russia, by the way, not Ukraine. But yeah, the whole idea of literally entertaining these peace talks from the Russian point of view, in my opinion, is retarded. I don't think they should do that. I mean, when you're winning, you don't talk at this point. And everybody knows the Kiev regime is never going to capitulate to the Muscovite regime that easily. Somebody needs to actually win in this war. You cannot ceasefire or peace deal your way out of this one. It's just not possible. And I honestly think Donald Trump is being a complete moron for trying to literally end this war. When he promised he would end the conflict back in 2024, he should have said that I'm going to walk away from this conflict because Biden has been wasting our taxpayer money literally on trying to save this literally corrupt regime. But it appears that Donald Trump is now falling for the same trap that was literally planted for him during his first term, and now all signs are pointing to the possibility that he might just resume aid to Ukraine. And if he does that, he will have effectively become no better, if not exactly the same, as Joe Biden, which will effectively make his presidency completely useless. I mean, at this point, I am expecting him to resume aid, because he's literally got nothing done. I mean, yeah, he's had Witkoff go to Moscow, and he has said on numerous occasions throughout the course of the last month or two that they were close to a deal. But everybody knows by now, and this is the reality of the situation, that Donald Trump is not close to a deal. He is getting his ass completely cucked by both Russia and Ukraine. They don't want peace. They literally want to keep the war going until there's a winner and a loser. And in my opinion, Donald Trump is wasting his time. He should just walk away. But the fact that he keeps saying, I want to see peace, I want them to stop killing each other. Well, guess what, dude? It's been 3 damn years since this war started, and if anything, it should have been stopped in 2022. But your predecessor screwed you over by not doing that. It's 3 years too late, bub. Walk away. And if you don't walk away, you're going to get your ass handed to you in the 2026 midterms. Democrats are warmongers, yes, but at least they're honest about it. Literally, Biden, during his time in office when it came to Ukraine, never wanted to talk to Vladimir Putin regarding the subject. It was literally not a worthy discussion for the United States because the U.S. was fully committed to the war effort. Well, partly that is. Some Ukraine fanboys would want you all to believe otherwise, but that's beside the point. Donald Trump is literally dragging himself into a war that is no longer winnable, but also he is literally looking to taint his legacy for the people who voted for him, such as myself. And if he does decide to send aid to Ukraine or tries to stop this war, and then it restarts like a few years later down the road when the next president comes into power, then he will have just been seen as some guy who was just too scared to take a loss. And here's the thing. For Donald Trump's sake, if he wants to keep his supporters happy, he should walk away. Most of his supporters do want him to walk away from this war. But the fact that he has not been able to do so tells me that this man has either been compromised by the very same people who compromised his first administration, or he has too big of an ego to just take the L and walk. But is it really your own fault? Joe Biden low-key started this war years ago in 2022. This isn't your war. It was his war. He should be getting all of the blame for what's going on in Ukraine, not you. But the fact that you're trying to take ownership of the conflict and delaying the inevitable, which is probably a Russian victory, you're making yourself look like a complete dumbass. Seriously, man. Walk away. And if you don't walk away, you are literally going to regret it. Like, what's wrong? Are you afraid of getting lambasted by the mainstream media for being a so-called Russian asset? Are you afraid of being impeached by the Democrats between 2026 and 2028? Like, what are you so afraid of? Walk away! Like, for Christ's sakes, stop thinking you can deliver peace to Ukraine. It's too late. God. But anyway, sorry if I ranted too much, but I felt like that had to be said. He needs to stop playing peacemaker. Stop playing the role of hero. You are not either of those things. Let them fight. Let them fight. And wait for the winner. The end. So let's talk about the situation on the front. Now, first of all, in the Kherson region, there has been a report that the Russians have crossed the Dnieper River. This is unconfirmed reports, and to be honest, I think it's too good to be true, but let's just say it is true. The Russians have reportedly cleared all these islands here, which are all literally swamplands, and have entered the village of Tainika. Or, like, let me try to read it here. Tainika here. Like, taking, like, half of it. But I'm not going to take this report seriously yet because it's too early, and the idea of such a crossing on the Dnieper River is just so insane. We all know what happened with the Ukrainians and what happened when they tried to cross it. It didn't end up well. They got their ass handed to them, even though it took a lot of months to clear them out. But that's why you don't cross the Dnieper River. It's literally, if anything, a natural border now between Russia and Ukraine. It is. But other than that, we don't really have much information at this time. Nothing going on in the Zaporozhye direction, except the fact that the Russians tried to enter the village of Mala Tokmachka, but that didn't work out. They got booted out as soon as they tried to enter the village. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Zaporozhye front. Now in Donetsk region, more specifically the Velika Novosilka direction, it's a dead front. It's dead. Nothing really going on. The Russians have been trying to push into Viline Pule and Shevchenko, but have not been able to get like a breakthrough in that area. They haven't been able to do so. But that's about it. But in the former Karakove direction, something is happening. The Russians have not only cleared the village of Constantinople, but they are now battling it out for the village of Bogatyr. And if Bogatyr were to fall to Russia, then, yeah, basically everything here would be wide open. Like, there's basically nothing but empty fields for the most part in just little villages. And then you're in Dnipropetrovsk region. But yeah, Russians cleared out the outskirts and the fields of Razliv. And in Andriivka, the Russians have also cleared the fields north of it. And in addition, the Russians have also completely captured the village of Nadivka and are advancing towards the village of Novoalexandriivka. And if this were to fall, then there's basically just Novosarivka, and then you're in Dnipropetrovsk region. And also, by the way, there is a river crossing here, so the Russians will already be literally within sight of Dnipropetrovsk. Like, it's already, like, set in stone already. And also, there is a gray zone here in this area, so, like, the Russians are literally trying to enter Dnipropetrovsk as we speak. They're trying, but Ukrainian defenses there are very tough, and allowing the Russians to enter Dnipro region would be a massive morale and PR blow to the armed forces of Ukraine. Like, there's so many reasons why they're defending it. Like, I cannot literally state enough why this border here, despite it just being a few fields or so, is important. Like, Zelensky doesn't want to look like he's losing, and he's willing to send as many men as possible into this meat grinder here to ensure that Russia doesn't enter his home province, which alone would be very humiliating for him. Like, literally. But yeah, nothing really going on in the Pokrovsk direction, at least, well, the western Pokrovsk direction. But in the eastern Pokrovsk direction, things are happening. So the village of Yeli Zativka is a gray zone, so we don't know who really controls it. If anything, it's just ruins and maybe no man's land right now. And the Russians have also cleared the village of Beresivka. And because of that, the Russians have now pretty much gained, honestly, a good shot at, like, crossing this road here, this crossroad here, and going for the village of Malinivka. And if Malinivka were to fall, then basically the eastern flank of the Pokrovsk direction would be completely compromised. And yeah, Ukrainians would be sieged from the eastern side. But I argue they already are sieged from the east, from the southwest, from the south. I mean, they're sieged on, like, pretty much, like, 3 sides or so within this direction. But yeah, that's about it. Tarasivka was captured. Some fields outside of Ziline Pule was captured too. Russians have also continued advancing from Kalinove and have entered the village of Stara Mikolaevka. And have also captured the village of Suka Bolka, which is outside of New York, Nalipivka, and the strategic city of Toretsk. The Russians have also, speaking of which, in Toretsk, have tried to cut this road off here, which would essentially render all these guys here pretty much encircled, but they have not been able to do so yet. The attack has not yet been successful. But the Russians, however, in recent times have been gaining ground in Toretsk city itself and in its outskirts, and have captured the village of completely of Druzhba and are advancing in the direction of Delivka and Dachny. They advanced in this area here and have done a very good job as well at clearing the Terracons too in Toretsk. So Toretsk is probably going to come under Russian control sometime in May, like completely. In the Chaziv Yar direction, the Russians have been continuing to duke it out with the Ukrainians for the commie blocks, but bad news, by the way, coming in from the southern outskirts of the town. The Russians have not only cleared it, but they have also now entered the village of Stupachki. And if the Russians were to take this, then essentially Nikolaevka would be endangered of being put in a cauldron. And, like, the guys in Chasiv Yar, like, the Ukrainians are already mostly encircled, but they don't want to admit it yet. And also, with the recent news coming in, I'm very convinced that this summer we're going to see a Russian push towards the city of Konstantinovka, bearing no, like, CUCK deals from Vladimir Putin. I mean, I certainly believe the Russians are going to make a push for Konstantinovka. And will there be a fight there? Oh, I'm sure there will be. But will it be big and long? I don't know. Time will tell. I do think the AFU is becoming more depleted, but time will again tell if they're able to fight it off for a very long time. In Siversk, the Russians have reportedly tried to advance again, but nothing burgers here. In the Liman direction, the Russians have entered the village of Nove and are contesting for it right now, and it seems as if most of it is encircled. Like, look at this. This is a disaster for the Ukrainians right now. Like, literally a catastrophe right here. And if Nove were to fall, then basically the Russians will have a direct pathway to Liman, and a bunch of the Ukrainian defenses in this area here are just going to collapse. Russians are also continuing to advance towards one of the last villages in the Lugansk region that are still under AFU control, which is Rukivka. And not much going on in the Kharkiv region, though apparently there's speculation that the Russians, in a CUCK deal, will give up the remaining areas they have in the Kharkiv region in return for peace. But again, I don't think this is going to happen because it's a really bad deal. Again, if the Russians are exhausted to hell, then yeah, they might just take it. But I don't see that happening. In the Kharkiv region itself, apparently Russians have started to try advancing in this direction here, but nothing really going on. In Volchansk, it's the same story. Nothing really going on. It's a stalemate. Nothing going on in the Lipsy direction. It's dead. And in recent news, it has just came out that the Russians have basically retaken most, if not all, of the Kursk region, like the remaining parts that were still under AFU control. The village of Gornau has mostly, if not been, by this point, completely recaptured by the Russians. And in the Belgrade region, the villages of Popovka and Demidovka have also been completely recaptured by the Russians. So Ukrainians are no longer in the Belgrade region. They've been completely booted out. And in the Sumy direction, the Russians are clearing out the fields of Basovka and have re-entered the village of Laknia. Russians have also completed their capture of Zarovka too. I don't know how many times I repeated it, but apparently it's now been confirmed. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the map updates provided by Syriac. So, before I get going, again, I just want to say that Donald Trump is wasting his time on trying to rescue Ukraine, and also Vladimir Putin should not cuck. If I were him, I wouldn't cuck, because, I mean, unless your army is severely, like, depleted, like, it can't fight anymore, then don't sign any deals. But if they do sign a deal, along with their army still, like, being in decent shape, I mean, yeah, they've taken a lot of casualties in both maybe some men and, I guess, vehicles, but if the army is still able to fight, then why sign any deal? And besides, the ruble has gained strength in the last few months or so since Trump came to power. Like, I literally don't see a reason for Vladimir Putin to cuck. I mean, if he does cuck, then he's just being retarded. Like, he might be in the early stages of dementia, if you ask me. But I digress. I overall think the war is going to continue going into summer, and I will still stick by my prediction that Russia will enter Dnipropetrovsk region. Now, when exactly, I don't know. And we also need to keep an eye out on what's going on in the Kharkiv and Sumy regions. Because, for all I know, Russia could be doing something big there, but time will tell. So, I hope every single one of you has a great day. Stay safe, and I will see you all next time. Take care. Peace.